back, guys. Welcome back. So let's continue with our revision session. Up to this point, we have studied chapter number 1, we have studied chapter number 3, we have also studied chapter number 2. So now let's start with the revision of chapter number 4. If you remember the first chapter, the strategic levels of management, therein we had 3 strategic levels. Number 1, corporate level. Number 2, business level. Number 3, functional level. So now here we'll be studying about the strategies framed by those respective levels of management. So in chapter number 4, we'll be studying about corporate level strategies. In chapter number 5, we'll be studying about business level strategies. And in chapter number 6, we'll be studying about functional level strategies. So all the strategies which are framed by the top management, senior management, comes under this category, corporate level strategy. So here we need to study 4 broad strategies given by corporate management. It is also called as directional strategy, master strategy, or directional strategy. So what are these 4 strategies? The first one being stability strategy, second one expansion strategy, third retrenchment strategy, fourth combination strategy. So one by one we need to study all the 4 strategies at corporate level. So at any point of time, the corporate level management will be framing any one of the below mentioned strategies. Which are those strategies? It may be stability strategy, expansion strategy. Expansion is also called as growth strategy. It may also be retrenchment strategy. It may also be combination of all. So let's try to understand what is stability strategy. What do you mean by stability? Stability means continuing in the same business, making the same product, serving the same market, using the same business functions and performance processes, and not doing anything new. Again, same business, same product, same market, same technology, same process, same function. So are we doing anything new? No, we are doing the same thing that we were doing earlier. So does this amount to business redefinition? No. If you remember in chapter number 3, we studied business definition. So we are continuing with the same product, same market, same technology, same functions, same processes. So are we redefining our business? No. So there is no redefinition of business. There is no redefinition. Now you tell me, in this strategy, do we require more funds or less funds? Less funds. So if we require less funds, what sort of risk we will be facing? More risk or less risk? Less risk. And if the investment is low, the risk is also low. The rewards that we expect from this is moderate, not too high, not too low. I hope you understood this. Who pursues this? An organization who has reached the maturity stage in the business life cycle or product life cycle. These are the firms. Management who feels that if we expand, it can be threatening for us. So instead of taking on the threat, we continue to operate in the same stage. That is stability. One more thing. After a rapid period of expansion, we need to stabilize ourselves. We need to consolidate our position. That is why we also go for stability strategy. Does this mean that we are not doing anything? Is it a do nothing strategy? No. It is a do nothing new strategy. We are doing something. We are regularly analyzing the environment. We are trying to find out what our competitors are doing. We are trying to find out what the customer wants. We are also finding out what are the new rules and regulations that the government has come up with. So we are doing something, but are we doing something new? No, we are not doing something new. So, if I may ask you, tell me the risk here in stability strategy is more or is less? It is less. The investment required is more or less? Less. Then what will be the returns expectations? More, less or moderate? Moderate. Very good, guys. Now tell me, do we manufacture new products? Do we enter into new markets? Do we use new technology? No, we are in the same business, same product, same market, same technology, same processes. So, we are trying to improve our functional performance. What are we trying to achieve? Our improvement in functional efficiency. What sort of growth we want? We want incremental growth. What do you mean by incremental growth? Additional growth. 1 plus 1, 2, 2 plus 1, 3, 3 plus 1, 4. We don't want exponential growth. We are very happy with the current level of performance. So all this comes under stability strategy. Let's try to understand what is stability strategy. Stability strategy. A firm stays with the same business, same product market posture, functions, maintaining the same level of effort at present. Environment is stable, organization is doing well, then we will make no changes. Why should we change something which is going so well? An organization would like to apply stability strategy if it is satisfied that same product, serving the same customer, maintaining the same market share, and management does not want to take any risk. We don't want to take any risk. It does not involve redefinition of business. So what we want to do? We want to enhance our functional efficiency. In which way? Incremental way. And how are we going to do this? By improving our functional efficiency, utilizing our resources to the optimal. Better deployment and utilization of resources. What do you mean by deployment? Allocation. It does not warrant fresh investment. So no new investment is required. Growth objective is modest. So what sort of expectations we have as regards to returns? Modest. It is less risky strategy. If investment is low, risk is also low, because we have moderate expectations of returns. Is it a do nothing strategy? No, it is not a do nothing strategy. We keep track of changing environmental conditions. Right. Who pursues this? Who have reached maturity stage in product life cycle. So, what are the objectives of stability strategy? To safeguard his existing interest and strength. We want to safeguard our position. We don't want to give up our market share, market position. To pursue the well established and tested objectives. Whatever we have done up to this point, we want to continue to do the same. We don't want to try anything else. Whatever we have been doing for past so many years, we wish to continue with the same set of objectives, with the same set of established principles, policies. To continue the chosen business path. We don't want to experiment. We don't want to enter into new markets. We don't want to enter into new products. We don't want to change our technology. Just continue to do the same thing. To maintain operational efficiency and to obtain the returns on the resources committed to the business. So we have invested lots of money in machinery, lots of investment in our factory setup. So I want to recover all that money. And how can we do so? By continue to produce the same product, serving the same market and using the same technology and process. So why do companies go for stability? Reasons for adopting stability strategy. When the environment is stable, we will go for stability strategy. expansion is considered to be threatening, less risky. So the management and the people around the organization feels that we can do this. There has to be no or very little changes. After a rapid period of expansion, consolidation is needed. So after expanding for a while, we need to stabilize our position. We need to consolidate our position. So this was, guys, our first strategy, that is stability strategy. Now let's discuss the second strategy, expansion strategy. Now what do you understand by expansion? Expansion is also called as growth. So whenever I say expansion, I also mean growth. In expansion, the company will either make new products, will either enter into new geographical markets, will change their technology, will change their processes of doing things. So here we will enter into new geographical markets. We will make new products. We will use new technology. We will use new processes. So I am asking you one simple question. Does it amount to redefinition of business? Yes. So it amounts to redefinition of business. So new product, new market, new technology, new processes. Does it amount to redefinition of business? Yes, it involves redefinition of business. Now, what sort of investment will be required? Less investment or more investments? More investments. If investments are more, what sort of returns we are expecting? More returns. What sort of risk we will face? We will face more risk, more returns, more investments, right? So this is expansion strategy. Now there are ways of expansion. There can be internal ways of expansion, there can be external ways. Basically in expansion we need to study 4 expansion types. Expansion through intensification, expansion through diversification, expansion through mergers and acquisition, and expansion through strategic alliances. So we need to study these 4 things. Let's try to tackle each one. Expansion. What does this mean? Redefining the business. The first sentence itself tells you that in expansion we will be redefining our business by adding the scope of business, substantially increasing the efforts of the current business. So how can we do so? Intensification or diversification. Popular strategy followed by dynamic enterprise who likes to take on challenges, who likes to evolve. Those organizations who like to evolve, those who like to take challenges, those organizations go for expansion strategy, go for growth strategy. It will involve increased investment. You will require more money. You will have to enter into new geographical locations, new products, product differentiation, new technology, product range, number of products you will widen. The rewards are also high. The risk is also very high. Investment is high, risk is high, rewards are also high. What are the reasons for expansion? Why do companies go for expansion? It may become imperative when the environment demands. So now up to this point, last year, Maruti never thought of entering into electric vehicles. But now you tell me, looking at the current scenario, petrol prices are increasing. Government is giving incentive. Competitors are also making electric vehicles. Moreover, customers also want electric vehicles. So don't you think so it is the right time for Maruti also to enter into electric vehicle segment? So this becomes imperative when the environment demands increase in activity. Expansion may lead to more control vis-a-vis the competitor. If we expand, we will be able to have a better control over our competitors. We will be able to have a better market position, market share. So that is why we expand. We can also take advantage of experience curve in large scale production, economies of scale and large scale production we can take advantage of. The more you produce, your cost per unit will come down. Because of the reduced cost, you will be able to sell at a lower price as regards to your competitors. So you can take advantage of this. Last one, the strategist may feel more satisfied with the prospects of growth from expansion. So the top management or the strategist who is making the strategy, they will feel happy, they will feel contented that yes, we were able to expand our business. We were part of that team who led so much of expansion. This was a note on expansion strategy. Now we are trying to understand what are the different types of expansion. So expansion can be through intensification, it can be through diversification, it can be through merger and acquisition, it can also be through strategic alliance. So let's try to tackle each one. What do you mean by intensification? I'll take you back to the second chapter which we studied. If you remember guys, therein we studied portfolio analysis. In one of those portfolio analysis technique, we came across these words, intensification and diversification. Let me jog back your memory. Therein, we studied one concept, one portfolio analysis technique. What was that technique? Ansoff's product market growth matrix. If you remember, product market growth matrix. On the x-axis we had product. Product can be of two categories, existing, new. Market can be of two categories, existing, new. So two columns, two rows. We had four options, existing product, existing market. What was that called? Market penetration. Product is the same, we are entering into new market, market development. Product is new, market is same, existing, that is product development. So market penetration, market development, product development. These three are called as intensification. And the last one was called as diversification. New product, new market. Now you tell me, don't you think so this part is done? Still I'll tell you. What do you mean by intensification? The company continues to be either serving the same customer, either making the same product, or both. That is called as intensification. We have three types of intensification. Market penetration, quickly. Existing product, existing market. Existing product, existing market. We are manufacturing the same product. We are serving to the same customer group. It's just that we are asking them to use a little more. Instead of brushing your teeth once a day, brush your teeth twice a day. So with this, we'll be able to increase the usage of the product. With the increase in the usage of the product, the company will be able to achieve more sales, growth. How can they do so? By advertisement. This is a strategy in which the company is making the same product, serving the same market, so it is less risky. It is less risky because we are not entering into something new. We are continue to doing the same thing. Right? So this was market penetration. Market development. Product is the same. We are entering into new markets. We are entering into new markets. Japanese car companies initially started business manufacturing of cars in their own country. Thereafter, they expanded their business operations to other Asian countries, to European countries, to American countries, North American countries. Now you tell me, what is this? Is the product same? Yes. Is the market same? No. The market is new, totally new customer base. So this is market development. Now you tell me, for market development, risk will be moderate and we'll have to invest. We'll invest substantially in plant, equipment and other geographical locations. The third one, product development. In product development, what happens? Our product is new, but our market is same, existing. Here we are trying to sell to the same customer some new product. For this strategy to work, you will have to increase your expenditure towards R&D. You will have to come up with new technological innovation. And this is also a strategy wherein moderate risk is required. Which sort of risk? Moderate risk. And this covers our market penetration, market development, product development. These three fall part of intensification. I hope you have understood this. Now let's talk about diversification. Before we do that, let's read what is intensification. All this will form part of expansion. Don't forget this. This is expansion. Market penetration. Market penetration is also called as market concentration. Right? Okay, great. So here what we try to do, concentrate on the current business. Increase the market share. Our objective is to increase the market share, increase the product usage, increase the frequency used, increasing the quantity used. Next, market development. Present products. We are selling the same products in a market areas by adding the different channels, by changing the content of advertising or promotional media, expanding geographically and targeting new market segments. Product development. Substantial modification of existing products but related items that can be marketed to current customers. So I am serving the same customer, but I am modifying the existing product, or I am trying to give something new to the existing customers. How will you do so? By adding more features to the existing product, product refinement, developing a new generation product for the same market. So this was your first way of expanding, that was expansion through intensification. Now let's try to understand expansion through diversification. Diversification is considered to be the most risky strategy of this. Why? Because we are entering into a new market with a new product. We have little or no experience in this. So this is considered to be the most risky strategy, because we have no experience or no connection with the existing business. So in diversification also we have types. We have vertical diversification, we have horizontal diversification, we have concentric diversification, we also have conglomerate diversification. What is vertical diversification? Always remember, a manufacturer will never produce everything all by himself. They are dependent on the suppliers. So there is a process chain, process product chain we call. There will be suppliers, then will be manufacturers, then there will be distributors. After that we have consumers. So a chain from suppliers to customer. Process product chain. So in this chain, if we are manufacturer, suppose we are car manufacturing company and we buy tires from some other company. So if we are Maruti, we are buying tires from, let's say, CR tires, MRF tires, Michelin tires. So we are dependent on them for tires. So instead of me being dependent on them, why not start making our own tires? In this way we will be able to control our production activity. We will no longer be dependent on outsiders for tire. So this is vertical. I am either going backwards. If I am a manufacturer, I am going backwards. I am going to my supplier. Instead of going to supplier, I start doing that same business. So instead of buying tires from some tire company, I will start manufacturing the tires. This will be called as vertical backward diversification. But if I enter into the shoes of distributor, that will be called as vertical, but it will be forward vertical integration, integrated diversification. So a company can go backward, a company can go forward. In vertical, we can either go back or we can go forward. So vertical will have two sub parts, backward, forward. Then we have horizontal. We have horizontal diversification. In horizontal diversification, we try to be a manufacturer. Now we are trying to manufacture complementary products. We are trying to offer something which is related to our existing product. That will be called as horizontal diversification. Then what is concentric diversification? In concentric diversification, we follow the same process, but we come up with a new product. And with this new product, we will be able to attract new customers. Like if you see all the electronic items, it is marketed home appliances, electronic appliances. So LG is into making washing machine. They also make air conditioners. They also make TV. So they are into all sorts of home appliances, electrical appliances. So they are using a common marketing channel to promote their products, LG Electronics. So what is this? This is concentric. Even you can also think of it as this way. A bakery shop makes cakes, pastries. They also start making breads. So they are following the same process, baking process. And now they are coming up with, yes, they are coming up with new products in order to attract new customers. So this was concentric. Conglomerate, totally unrelated businesses, no connection with the existing business. So ITC is into tobacco products, cigarettes. They are into hotels. They are also into stationery. They are also into FMCG, fast moving consumer goods. You tell me, are these related in any way? No. So this is conglomerate expansion through diversification. Entering into new businesses other than the current ones. It may be entry into new markets, introduction of new products. It can be related or unrelated. So these three are called as related. This is called as unrelated. So let's try to understand vertical integrated diversification. In this, the firm will engage in business that are related to the existing businesses. The firm will remain vertically within the process sequence. Either we will move forward or we will move backward. So if I enter into distributors' shoes, if I start having my own distribution channel, that is forward. Firm does not jump outside the vertical link product process chain. It will sequentially move forward or backward. It becomes its own supplier or distributor. So I'll start manufacturing my own product, own raw material. So instead of me being dependent on some raw material supplier, I'll start with my own tire business. What do you mean by backward? Step towards creation of effective supply by entering into business of input providers, raw material suppliers. Greater internal control. I'll have a better control over the products. What do you mean by forward integration? Moving forward that use our existing product means distribution channel. Horizontal. Acquisition of one or more similar businesses generating at the same stage of production or marketing. That is offering complementary products or byproducts. So whatever you are making, you just try to enter into your complementary products or your competitor's product. You start manufacturing that. Concentric diversification. The new business is linked to the existing businesses through process or technology or marketing. The new product is a spin-off of existing facilities, products and processes. So in the same factory, in the same bakery, we are baking our cakes, we are baking our bread. So a new product. In concentric diversification, the new product is only connected in a loop-like manner at one or more points in the firm's existing process, technology, product chain. Then conglomerate diversification. Diversify into production of various unrelated products. The new business or product are disjoint from existing businesses. I have no connection with the existing business. It is totally new business, unrelated. So it is a totally unrelated diversification. The third one, expansion through mergers and acquisition. Now, before we study this, let's try to understand the meaning of a word, synergy. What do you mean by synergy? Synergy means benefit of two organizations coming together and doing business. Suppose two organizations operating separately. Factory A, Factory B, competitors, they are competitors. Initially, they were operating separately out of their own factories. This factory A had a capacity of 10,000 units of manufacturing 10,000 units. This factory also had a manufacturing capacity of 10,000 units. Earlier they were competing against each other, so there was constant price war, constant war of prices amongst these. So because of this, these two companies were not able to earn profits. So what they decided, instead of fighting amongst each other, let's come together, let's merge. If we merge, we'll be able to fight the competition, we'll be able to have a better price. Customers will not be able to take advantage of our rivalry. So let's join hands. Now you imagine, now all of a sudden, the merged entity will have two locations, factory at two locations. Now the combined production capacity will be 20,000 units. So if they get an order of, let's say, manufacturing 15,000 units, will they be able to do so? Yes. So they have avoided the competition. Moreover, they can fulfill better orders now. They can get more orders. They will not enter into price war. So these are some benefits that you can get when you do merger or when you acquire a company, acquisition. So what is synergy? The benefit of doing business together. You can have benefits in terms of increased revenue. You can have reduced cost. Now two businesses merge together, some cost will be reduced. Some expenditure which were incurred individually will no longer have to be incurred. You'll have good employees with you all. Those employees who are capable, competent will be retained. Others will be asked to let go. So this is the benefit of synergy. You'll have a better management personnel. So these are the examples of synergic benefits that you can get. Now, Before you understand what are the different types of mergers, let's try to understand what is merger and what is acquisition. Merger means two entities coming together on a friendly terms, and now they are operating under one single name. So we are letting go of our existing businesses, we are discontinuing our existing business, we are shutting down our existing businesses, and we are coming together on a friendly terms, so that we can fight the competitors together, so we can avoid price war. The customer will not be able to take advantage. So here in this case it is called as merger. So the company will now be sharing profits, the merged entity will be sharing profits and losses in the agreed ratio as decided by them. So this is called as merger. Then what do you mean by acquisition? Acquisition means you are trying to buy a financially weak company. So when a strong company buys another company, that is called as acquisition. So what is it different? How is it different than merger? In merger we come together and do business on friendly terms. Acquisition may not be friendly, it may be forcibly. And here in merger, two businesses will come together and will continue to do the business. Here one financial strong company will be taking over the business operations of the other company. So this is acquisition. So what are the types of merger and acquisition? Here also we will have four types: vertical, horizontal, co-generic, conglomerate. The meaning remains the same. In vertical merger, what we will do? We will be merging with either our suppliers or we will be merging with our distributors. So instead of starting my business from scratch, I will be merging with some other entity. Now you think, if you start your business from scratch, that is diversification, don't you think so it is time consuming? Don't you think so it will require much more investments? And in order to establish ourselves in that particular business, we will require patience. So that is an organic way of growth, long cut. But if you want to grow quickly, what you will do? You will merge with some other company. You will acquire some other company. So this is called as vertical merger. What happens in merger? It is inorganic way of growing your business, a shortcut way. Instead of you doing all the work, you already have someone who's established. You either merge with them or acquire that company. That is vertical, horizontal, co-generic, conglomerate. It can happen in four ways: vertical, horizontal, co-generic, conglomerate. The meaning remains the same. Vertical, instead of doing the business from scratch, I will merge or I will take over one company. I will buy one company, acquire one company. I hope you understood this. Great. So vertical merger will require you to merge with a supplier or distributor. So if you merge with your supplier, it is called as vertical backward merger. If you merge with your distributor, it will be vertical forward merger. Perfect? Great. Horizontal. You are manufacturing one product. Now you are merging with someone who is producing complementary products. So you will be able to serve more customers. So now this is horizontal merger. Co-generic is concentric. Instead of doing it all by myself, I am merging or I am acquiring some other company. That is co-generic merger. The best example of horizontal merger is Vodafone Idea in today's time. They were competitors, right? Few years back they were competitors, and now they are the merged entity. So Vodafone Idea is horizontal merger. Co-generic, same process, same marketing technique. Instead of doing it from scratch, I merge with some other company. That is co-generic merger. Conglomerate merger, totally unrelated merger. I have no connection of existing business, but still I am merging with that company. So these were the expansion through merger and acquisition. Let's try to read this. Many organizations, in order to achieve quick growth, shortcut, often use strategies such as mergers and acquisition. This also helps them in deploying surplus funds, in allocating surplus funds, in using surplus funds. Expansion through M&A is attractive method of expansion through diversification. Merger and acquisition, in simple words, are defined as a process of combining two or more organizations together. Merger is considered to be a process where, this is merger, two or more companies will come together to expand their business operations. In this case, the deal will get finalized on friendly terms and both will share the profits in newly created entity. In a merger, two organizations will combine to increase their strength and financial gains along with breaking the trade barrier. So now Vodafone Idea, earlier they were rivals, they were competitors. Now they are helping each other so that we can fight the other competitors, we can provide better services to the customers. So this point was merger. Now this is acquisition. When one organization takes over the other organization and controls all its business, it is known as acquisition. In this process of acquisition, one financially strong organization will overpower the weaker one. It is also called as takeover or absorption. So why do companies go for merger and acquisition? Because our basic urge, our basic requirement is to grow and to achieve synergy, so that we can take advantage of something called as synergy. If we combine together, the combined benefit will be more. So that is why we go for mergers and acquisition. It may arise in physical facilities. We will have two factories, technical and managerial skills, the top management, the R&D department. The patents can be shared by both the entities. We can take advantage of the distribution channel. We can take advantage of the general administration. So these were the reasons. Now what do you mean by synergy? Organizational part integrate themselves to produce their joint effort, combined effort. Joint effort means combined effort usually will be greater than sum of the parts acting alone. So if you are operating individually, you will not be able to get synergic benefits. But if you combine, if you come together, you will have some benefits. And the benefit can be in the form of increase in production capacity, better managerial personnel, lower cost, better R&D team. All such things can be your benefit. That is because of synergy. This is called as 1 plus 1 will be more than 2. We try to create synergy through cost reduction, revenue addition, technological upgradation. This can be achieved through merger and acquisition. Now we have the types of merger. Vertical merger, horizontal merger, co-generic merger, conglomerate merger. I did not go through the points, guys. The points are the same. The only thing that you should understand is the basic fundamental difference between mergers and acquisition and diversification. In diversification, we want to start our business from scratch. Here, we are merging or acquiring a company. Yes or no? Yes. Now, coming to the last part of expansion. By the way, which chapter we are studying? We are studying chapter number 4, corporate level strategies, wherein we completed stability strategy. In expansion, we have completed the various types. We are on the fourth one. Expansion through intensification, expansion through diversification, expansion through mergers and acquisition. Now we are on expansion through strategic alliance. Now what do you mean by strategic alliance? Strategic alliance means we will come together and do business for a particular period of time, maybe at a particular location, but we will not be giving up our own individual identity. We will not be giving up our own individual identity. So we will be operating separately also, and here for this purpose we will come together and do business. So that is strategic alliance. What is strategic alliance? The relationship between two or more businesses that enable each to achieve certain objectives which neither would be able to achieve on its own. So these are called as strategic alliances. So institute will ask you, what are the advantages and disadvantages? What do you mean by strategic alliance? What are the advantages and disadvantages? So we have 4 advantages. Strategic alliance will lead to economic benefit, economic advantage. It can also lead you to strategic advantage. You will have organizational advantage. You may also have political advantage. So we have 4 advantages: ESOP, economic advantage, strategic advantage, organizational advantage, political advantage. It also suffers from 2 disadvantages. Sharing. Whenever we talk about sharing, sharing of what? Sharing of knowledge, sharing of skills, sharing of secrets. Of course, sharing of profits will also happen. And if you are sharing your secrets, if you are sharing your skills, if you are sharing your work, someday or the other, once the alliance ends, that person, that entity can become your competitor. That entity can become your competitor. So, sharing and potential competitor, these 2 are your disadvantages. So, let's try to read advantages of strategic alliance. Economic. There can be a reduction in cost. Risk. You can reduce your risk, you can reduce your cost by distributing them across the members of the alliance. So you can share the cost, you can share the distribution network. So thereby the risk is also minimized, the cost is also minimized. You can achieve something called as economies of scale. They are also producing, you are also producing. So strategically we have come together as strategic partners and we are able to take a benefit of this. This was economic benefit. Strategic. Rivals can join together to cooperate instead of compete. So instead of competing with each other, let's have a strategic alliance. Let's not compete, let's work together. May be useful to create competitive advantage by pooling of resources. So use my resources, I will use your resources. You use my technology, I will use your technology. So this is strategic advantage. Organizational, we'll be able to learn necessary skills from each other and we will obtain capabilities. As I go on learning from you, I'll acquire capabilities from you, you acquire capabilities from me. It will enhance our capacity. It will help us get a good distribution system. We will be able to manage our supply chain. Having a strategic partner who is well known and respected also helps to add legitimacy and credibility to our venture. So if I have a reputed partner alliance, then this will add legitimacy. My business will be considered as genuine. People will trust my products, people will trust my business, and I'll get more business. May provide goods or services that complement, thereby creating synergy. This happens in all fast food chain restaurants. Go to McDonald's, they'll offer you Pepsi Coke. Go to Burger King, they'll offer you Pepsi Coke. So what is this? This is strategic alliance. Go to Domino's, they will offer Pepsi Coke along with their burger. So what is this? This is strategic alliance. The last advantage is political advantage. In some countries, the law of land requires that if you are a foreign company wanting to start business in their country, you will have to have a local partner. So in order to have a local partner, you are having a strategic alliance. Sometimes strategic alliance are formed with a local foreign business to gain entry into foreign market because of local prejudices or legal barriers. Because of the law of land states that you cannot have business as a foreign company, you will have to have someone who's local. Forming a strategic alliances with politically influential partners may also help to improve your influence and position. So if a reputed company is your alliance strategic partner, you can use your connections to develop more businesses in other areas. What are the disadvantages? First is sharing, the second is potential competitor. Sharing of resources, profits, also sharing of knowledge and skills, otherwise the organization may not share. So I may not share some skills or some secrets if you are an outsider, but because you are working with me, you are my strategic partner, I will open my strategy to you, I will discuss my secrets to you. But again, if I am sharing my knowledge, if I am sharing my skills, what if we part ways? What if we go on our different paths? Sooner rather than later, you will become my competitor, using my own knowledge, using my own skills, learning from me. Now you are competing against me. That is potential competitor. So sharing of knowledge and skills can be problematic if they involve trade secrets. You can enter into agreements, but they are only as good as the willingness of the parties to abide by the agreement. What if the counterparty, the alliance partner, does not abide by the law, does not follow the rule? It will take time, right? It will take time for the court to hear our matter. So by that time, they may take advantage of this situation. So it is a disadvantage for us. That is sharing. Potential competitor. Strategic alliance may create a potential competitor. An ally, a friend, can become a competitor in future when it decides to separate out. So a friend today will become a competitor for tomorrow. So you'll have to be very careful. Does this mean that you will not enter into strategic alliance? No. Companies enter into strategic alliance, but they are very careful while drafting the agreements. They are very careful what information should we share with our strategic partners. It is clearly written. Okay. So this was your second strategy, guys. We have already studied stability strategy. We have already studied expansion strategy. Now let's try to study the third strategy, retrenchment strategy. What do you mean by retrenchment? In simple language, retrenchment means reduction. Reduction of what? Reduction of number of products in our product line. That can be your first retrenchment. Coming out of few markets, discontinuing in few markets, closing down your geographical locations setup. You had multiple outlets, multiple centers at various locations. Now you are shutting them down. So this is retrenchment. It can also be reducing the number of products, reducing the market, reducing the technology, reducing the processes. So retrenchment is again opposite of expansion. In expansion, what we are trying to do? Increase the product, increase the market, increase the technology, new product, new market, new technology, new process. Here in retrenchment, reduce your products, reduce the geographical locations, reduce the technology, reduce the process. So tell me, does this amount to redefinition? Yes. Earlier we were doing business at 2 locations. Now we have discontinued 1 location. So does it amount to business redefinition? Yes. This can be temporary. Why? Because I feel my products are no longer competitive. I feel that the environment in which we are currently operating is very dynamic and hostile. We don't have to face such risk now. We cannot face. We don't have the sufficient resources or technology. So I am withdrawing myself from few markets. I am taking a step back. So is it bad to go a step back? No. It's okay, part of business, right? Few products will be good, few products may not turn out to be good. So it's okay. So what is retrenchment? Retrenchment strategy is followed when an organization substantially reduces the scope of its activity. Constitutes redefinition of business. Constitutes redefinition of business. It is a defensive strategy. You are trying to protect yourself. As a temporary business policy to face the problems like intensive competition, lack of managerial abilities, change in market or economic conditions. This involves reduction of products or services. So you will reduce your products, you will withdraw from markets. Retrenchment can be done internally or externally. So internal retrenchment, what we'll try to do, we'll try to make our loss making business into profitable one. So we are trying to turn around the financial position of that company. So that is turnaround. Externally, how we can do retrenchment? Either by divestment or by liquidation. So internal retrenchment is called as turnaround, whereas external retrenchment is called as divestment or liquidation. So what do you mean by turnaround? Reversing the decline. Reversing the decline. So our products or services are not performing well. Our business is not doing well, but we still are hopeful that the current business should be given one more chance. So this is the reason why we go for turnaround, because we are hopeful. We are hopeful, we are optimistic that this time is the right time to try for turnaround. If we are able to do this, then our business will be able to do well in future. So, what is turnaround? Internal retrenchment is called as turnaround. Focus here is on improving the efficiency. I want to reduce the wasteful expenses. I want to reduce the excess employees that we have. And I will do so till my position improves. So institute can ask you 3 different questions in turnaround itself. What are the indicators or what are the danger signals that suggest that you should go for turnaround strategy? What are the indicators or what are the danger signals which suggest that you should go for turnaround strategy? The second step, the second question that institute can ask, what are the action plan for turnaround strategy? What do you mean by action plan? The steps that you need to take in order to go for turnaround. And the last question that institute can ask you is, what are the elements that contribute to turnaround? So these are the three questions individually institute can ask in this category. So be careful, guys. So there are conditions which suggest that turnaround needs to be adopted. So these are called as indicators. These are called as indicators, or they are also called as danger signals. You can also call this as danger signs. The organization is not able to generate positive cash flows. Means their cash outflow is more as compared to their inflows. I am selling goods on credit basis to my customers, but I need to pay to my suppliers immediately. I need to pay my workers immediately. I need to incur overhead expenses immediately. But suppliers, immediate. Wages, immediate. Overheads, immediate. Customers will pay me after 3 months. Now you tell me, for how many months, how many years I will be able to do this? Not for long. So if you are having a persistent means continuous, persistent negative cash flows, this is one of the indicators that your organization is not doing well. You should think about turning around the business operations. What can you do to turn around? Because in this way, you are spending all your money, but you will be getting cash after 3 months, after 4 months. So not a good way to do business. Number 2, your market share is reducing. Why it is reducing? Because the products that you are manufacturing is uncompetitive. The product that you are manufacturing is uncompetitive. In today's competitive world, if the customer does not like your product, he or she will shift to some other product. So you are not competitive. Because of this, your share is reducing. Top management is not doing their work very well. In fact, they are mismanaging the business. If you remember the first ever definition that I taught you in strategic management, mismanagement. The survival and success of any organization is dependent upon the character and competence. Here, the management themselves are not working properly. There is some mismanagement. High employee turnover, overstaffing. Employees are leaving our organizations very quickly. They come to know that we are not able to pay them on time. Why? Because we are having negative cash flows. So they wait for 1 month, they wait for 2 months. If they don't get their salary, they leave. All the training that you gave them, all the orientation, all the expenses, waste. So these are the few indicators. Negative profit. Here we are selling our profit, selling our product. Here we are selling our product at losses. Why? Because we are making uncompetitive products. So just to stay in the competition, we are temporarily selling our products at losses. So these are the few indicators or danger signs as to the firm should undertake or should undergo turnaround. Here, persistent negative cash flows, declining market share, uncompetitive products, negative profits, mismanagement, overstaffing, all this amounts to the danger signs or indicators that company should go for turnaround. In order to do turnaround, the company must focus on short-term and long-term needs. Now the next question, guys. The next question is the action plan or the stages. What are the steps that you will undertake in order to do turnaround strategy? So we have 5 steps. Number 1, try to identify the problem and the root cause of the problem. So assessment of the current problem. Assessment of the current problem. What is the problem? What is the current symptoms? And try to find out the root cause and what sort of damage it has caused. So first step is assessment of current problems. Thereafter what you will do, you will analyze the situation and develop a strategic plan. So you will try to find out, will my business be able to survive the existing competition? Do we have sufficient resources? Analyze the situation. Check for your strength and weakness. Check for the external opportunities or threat. Will we be able to fight the competition? Do we have proper strength? Do we have opportunities in the environment? Try to find out. So here, before you do any major changes, determine the chances of business survival, whether we will be able to survive or not. If yes, then make appropriate strategy and develop a preliminary action plan. If no, what's the point of continuing? But if we think no, this is temporary, this phase of intensive competition, of cutthroat competition will pass out. So what we should do? We should frame an emergency plan. Right. For this, one should look for viable core business. What is the main business that I should continue with? Try to arrange for short-term loans. Bridge financing means short-term loans. And available organizational resources. What sort of resources I'll be needing? Once you have analyzed the current situation, analyze the situation. First, you found out your current problems, what is the root cause and what sort of damage it has caused. Now, second step is you have analyzed the situation and you feel that yes, we will be able to fight the existing competition, we will be able to survive. And then you will develop a strategic plan. You will analyze your strength and weakness, and after analyzing your own strength and weakness, you will find out whether there is an opportunity in the environment or there is some weakness. There are some threats. So if there are opportunities, you will try to grab hold of those opportunities. If there are threats, you will try to face the threats. So I try to identify the opportunities or try to identify the threats. After you have done that, develop a strategic plan. So the first step was to assess the current situation, current problems. Second step was to analyze the situation and develop a strategic plan. Third, implementing an emergency action plan. What is to be done now? So if we want our business to survive for a longer duration, future, what is to be done currently? So we need to stop the bleeding. If the organization is at a critical stage, appropriate action plan must be developed to stop the bleeding and enable the organization to survive. So what sort of action we will take? Hire employees, arrange money, do marketing, ask our workers to produce good quality products, ask the distribution team to deliver the products on timely basis. So we can use human resource, financial strategy, marketing strategy, operations, actions. We'll have to restructure the debts, we'll have to improve the working capital, reduce the cost, improve the budgets. So all this we'll have to do. We'll have to look for positive operating cash flow. If you remember, this was one of the danger signs. What we'll try to do? We will try to generate positive cash flows. We'll try to recover cash immediately from our customers. We'll ask for some credit from our suppliers. We will defer our operating expenditures. So we are trying to generate positive cash flows. We are trying to survive, breathe, stop the bleeding. Fourth step is restructuring the business. In this stage, we will focus on our main business, core business. We will try to find out whether we will be able to survive Is our existing business damaged? If it is damaged irreparably, means we cannot do anything about this, then it will be very difficult for us to survive. Then our future is very bleak, uncertain. The financial state of the organization's core business is particularly important. If the core business is irreparably damaged, then the outlook for the entire organization is bleak. So what can we do? We'll have to prepare cash forecast. We'll have to analyze our debts. We'll have to analyze our assets. We'll have to review our profits. We'll have to review our KPIs, key performance indicators, key financial functions to position the organization for rapid improvement. We may have to let go few products. We may have to abandon few products. We'll have to change the product mix. Just like Tata Motors did with Tata Nano. They discontinued that product. So during the turnaround, the product mix may be changed, requiring the organization to do some repositioning. Just like Apple did, just like Eicher Motors did. Core products neglected over time may require immediate attention to remain competitive. So all the products which were ignored earlier because we were not thinking that these were my main products, I ignored those products. I'll have to give them more time, more investment. I'll have to allocate more resources to those products. Some facilities might be closed. I may have to shut down few factories. I may have to withdraw from some markets. I want to make my organization leaner. I want to reduce the number of products. I want to reduce the number of manufacturing locations. Basically, I want to reduce my costs. Doing all this, the employees may be demotivated. Their morals might be a little low because all these things is new for them. So they may be a little nervous. They may be a little demotivated. So what you can do? You'll have to do morale building so that the organization's employees remain committed to you. You will have to give a good reward and compensation system that encourages dedication and creativity amongst employees. And the last step is to return to normal. In the final stage, in this stage, the organization has started showing signs of improvement. They have started making profits. If you remember all the indicators, negative profits. Now the organization has started making profits. We have started making competitive products. Our market share is increasing. So all this is returning to normal. Final stage of turnaround should begin to show the signs of profitability. Our returns are increasing, return on investment, return on capital employed. Emphasis is placed on number of strategic efforts. So we will try to expand. Once we are returning to normal, we will try to increase our product lines. We will enter into new geographical locations. We will try to increase our market share. The last part for turnaround. What are the elements that contribute to turnaround? So first things first, you will have to change the top management. If you remember, the survival and success of any organization is dependent on the character and competence. So one of the danger signs, one of the indicators was that your management was not doing the job well, mismanagement. So you'll have to change the top management. Your reputation has gone for a toss. Nobody believes in you. The suppliers are not giving you credit. The bankers and financial institutions are not giving you loan. The workers are not ready to work for you. They are demanding strike until you pay all the money. Nobody is showing faith in you. So what you will do? You will run away? No, you will have to rebuild the trust, rebuild the faith. How can you do so? Initial credibility building action. What you will have to do? You will have to take initial credibility building action. Talk to the labor union, talk to the bankers and financial union, talk to the suppliers. Try to neutralize the pressure that they are creating. Give me money, give me money, give me money. Supplier is also asking for money. Bankers are also asking for money because you have not repaid them. The labor union is also asking for bonus. Try to explain them the situation what we are going through. First you build your trust, that is credibility building action. Then neutralize the pressure that they are creating, wanting for money. Few will agree, few will not agree. If you agree, very good. If they don't agree, sell off your assets. Sell off your assets and identify the quick payoff activity. Sell off the assets and try to find out of these whom should be paid first. Bankers, okay, take your money, go. Suppliers, out of 10 suppliers, 4 will be paid off immediately. Take your money, go. We don't want such suppliers. We will request the labor union to stay committed to us. We will give them their salaries, we will give them their dues, but give us some time. We will try to convince them. Pay them half wages now and tell them half wages will be paid in some time. Ask for some time. That is identifying quick payoff activities. Reduce your cost. One of the reasons why your organization was not performing well was increased cost. Reduce the cost. Try to generate revenue immediate basis and try to have better internal control. So all this results into elements that contribute to turnaround. Do revise this, okay? So we were studying retrenchment strategy. In retrenchment strategy, we have 3 types. Turnaround, we have already done this. Divestment, and the last one will be, very good, liquidation. So what is divestment? Divestment means sale or discontinuing a part of my business, discontinuing part of the product line. So this is divestment. So whenever I am planning to shut down a business operation, shut down one particular business, shut down one particular product, that is called as divestment. That is called as divestment. Why do we go for divestment? For 2 reasons. In fact, for many reasons. One of the few reasons is, whatever we were doing is not matching with our current capabilities. We thought we were able to deliver passengers from one location to the other location. So we thought we will be able to deliver food also to customers at their doorstep. But we forgot to observe that already we have few competitors who are doing the same thing. And Indian customers are price sensitive customers. They compare the prices and they will avail the services wherein it fits their budget the best. So mismatch can be one of the reasons why people go for divestment. One business is profitable, the other business is not doing well. So the business which is not doing well is eating up all the profits, is eating up all the cash. So that is also one of the reasons. It's better that we discontinue this loss making business, otherwise it will eat up our cash more. So these can be the reasons. Divestment strategy can be used when you tried turning around your business but you failed, or else you ignored the turnaround. You knew that it will be a waste of time, energy, resources to go for turnaround, and you directly went ahead with divestment. So turnaround, divestment, liquidation. So when can you go for divestment? When you tried for turnaround. You tried to make good your loss making situation but you failed, or you ignored the fact of turnaround. You knew that it is a waste of time, money, resources to go for turnaround. Let's directly go for divestment because I don't wish to continue in the same business. Let's give it up. Let's sell it off. Let's shut down. So divestment. Divestment strategy will involve sale or liquidation of a portion of a business or major division profit center or SBU. Sony divested their mobile division. Tata Motors discontinued Tata Nano. So it is a part of normal business decision. Nothing to be ashamed of. Part of business regular activity. Few companies continue to take bold decisions, continue to keep the loss-making products. Few will take a very bold step of discontinuing it. It's okay, part of normal business process. It is a restructuring plan that is adopted when a turnaround has been attempted but proved unsuccessful. Number 2, it was ignored. What was ignored? Turnaround. Reasons for adopting divestment strategy. Cannot be integrated within the company, mismatch. Uber Eats, mismatch. Persistent negative cash flows from a particular business will create financial problems for other business. One business is doing really well, but the other business is not doing well. So the other business which is not doing well, so I have to use my profit making business's cash in order to feed this. Now, not good, not correct. I am unable to face the competition. Technological upgradation is required if the business is to survive, which the company cannot afford. We cannot have a new technology because we don't have sufficient money, sufficient expertise. Last one, a very realistic one. A better alternative may be available. So I may have some better alternative. Instead of investing my time, money, resources in this business, let's do something else. I have better alternatives. The last of the retrenchment strategy, liquidation strategy. What is liquidation? Liquidation in simple terms means shutting down our business operations and discontinuing our business operations. After discontinuing our business operations, we sell all our assets individually. We sell all our assets individually. So, it is not a popular way of retrenchment strategy. Why? Sole trading concern starts a business, shuts down the business. It happens. Partnership firm starts, it is dissolved, it happens. But when a public limited company or a company tries to go for liquidation, many stakeholders are involved. Many. The shareholders, government for taxes, bankers or financial institutions for the money that they have given to the company. The suppliers will lose out on the money that they have supplied raw materials for. All the employees who are working in the organization. So many people are affected if a company is being shut down. So generally government never allows, government will never allow any company to go for liquidation because it is a very drastic step. It is the last step where a business takes, where they feel that a dead business is worth more than alive. So a dead business will be able to fetch more money by selling off the assets individually than continuing the business. So that is the situation where you should go for liquidation. It is not a popular strategy. The management or the owner, the promoter who started off with this business will have a stigma for the rest of his life. It is a retrenchment strategy considered most extreme and unattractive. Nobody likes to go for liquidation, which involves closing down a firm and selling its asset. Now you people get confused. Is it not same as divestment? No, Baba. In divestment, I sold a part of my product, I discontinued a part of my business. But here, the entire business is shutting down. We are discontinuing with our entire business. Divestment is selling business partially or fully, not assets individually. Here, in liquidation, we are selling the assets and business is not being continued by the purchaser. So, the buyer of the asset may not continue with this business. They may be using this asset for some other purpose. It leads to serious consequences like people will lose their job, termination for opportunities. They could have expanded the business, they could have done so much, but they will not be able to do so. The image of failure, stigma, the company management, government, banks, financial institution, trade unions, supplier, creditors, other agencies are reluctant to take a decision or ask for liquidation. Why? Because many stakeholders are involved, right? So government will not want a company to go for liquidation because firstly there will be job losses, government will lose out on taxes, suppliers will lose out on the money that they had supplied raw materials for, bankers, financial institutions, so all shareholders, so all this will be very difficult to manage. So that is why government does not want you to shut down. They are very reluctant, unwilling. They don't want it. Firm cannot expect to for adequate compensation. So the company who's selling the assets, they will not be given the right money for the assets. Why? It will not be of any use to the person who is buying that asset. So they will give you money as scrap, being unusable and considered as scrap. It is chosen when a dead business is worth more than alive. So when will you choose this? When a dead business is worth more than alive. Now coming back to the last strategy, guys. If you remember, this chapter, corporate level strategy, has 4 strategies: stability, expansion, retrenchment, combination. We studied what is stability, we studied what is expansion, we studied what is retrenchment. Now we are studying what is combination. What do you mean by combination? Just tell me, if you are into multiple businesses or multiple products, will you be following only one strategy? That is, if ITC wants to follow a strategy, will corporate level managers be following only stability strategy right across their different businesses, or they will be only doing expanding in all of the businesses, or they will reduce businesses on all? No. So when a company is into multiple products and multiple businesses, they can choose for one particular business, one particular product, whether we want to do stability, for the other business we want to do expansion, for the third business we want to do retrenchment. So those are not mutually exclusive alternatives. We can use it together. So this is combination. Stability, expansion, retrenchment are not mutually exclusive alternatives. Hence the combination of all the same can be adopted. An enterprise may seek stability in certain areas and expansion for others. So in one business you may seek stability, in the other you may seek expansion, in the third one you may also go for retrenchment. Choice is yours. Multiple products, multiple businesses. So this is combination strategy. The organization, why people go for combination? Because the organization is large and faces a complex environment, and we have different businesses and each will have different industry. So in today's time, hospitality industry means hotels, tourism. We cannot go for expansion. We need to stabilize. We need to maintain our position, stability. But when it comes to FMCG, when it comes to IT, when it comes to pharmaceuticals, we need to think of growing this, right? So hence one strategy may not suit them. So guys, with this we have completed this chapter. I hope you have understood this. So in the next session we will revise chapter number 5. Please revise this thoroughly. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.